Hey, good evening, everyone. I hope everybody's doing all right tonight. Today is August the 22nd. Guys, we're trying a lot of new things. Restream messed me up the other day, so I'm trying to get everything corrected and figure out how this is supposed to work from now on. Anyways, I'm glad you got to join us. And before I continue on, let me bring on my partner in crime, as always, Mr. Whalen. Hang on just a second. There we are. Hey, Whalen.
Partner in crime. I'm feeding the dog. I'll be off camera here. Y'all go ahead and carry on. I'll be listening in. I'll be in and out.
Be in and out. That's fine. We got our guest sitting back there waiting. I'll get him on in here in just a minute. Guys, if you're up there at Salt Fork and you're watching this show, we're hoping you have a good time and things go well up there for y'all. Y'all be safe and be careful. And I will see you guys Saturday, probably around 12:30. No, hopefully no later than that. I'll get my lazy rear end up and get on down there. But I'm looking forward to seeing everybody there. So, uh, Waylon, you got anything before I move on to hopefully the next announcement?
No, I'm fine. I'm gonna finish feeding him. Everybody up there at Salt Fort, be safe over there, all y'all, and I hope y'all have a good weekend and catch a Bigfoot. Catch him in the sack if you can.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, we're looking that we might, and it's looking like that we may end up changing our day from Thursday to Tuesday. Uh, we have some scheduling, not conflict, but we're trying to accommodate some things going on. And if Tuesday doesn't work out, we may look at doing something different, but we'll have to try it and see what's going on. So if you guys be patient with us, like I said, we're going to try to go back to Tuesdays at 7:30. Wellen, you think that'd be okay?
Yeah, 7 or 7:30. We'll try to do. I'll leave that up to Icebox what he wants to do. Yeah, we'll be on Tuesday night. Good Lord willing, y'all come join us.
Yep, absolutely. Miss Sharon is always glad to see you. I got to read your stuff. I'd like a little more information just on what you might have saw that day. Flat Rock, hope you are doing good, brother. I seen your show on for uh, I guess it was a little teaser or something like that. I enjoyed it though. I got to see Flat Rocks and around his house and listen to some stories. And I'm gonna tell you something, Flat Rock. You got a whistle on that show. I heard that whistle just about a week or two ago. That was almost the exact whistle that I heard, especially the last end of it. Uh, I don't see Ken on here. Maybe he just ain't put anything in there. But anyways, without further delay, guys, let's get our guest on here. I don't like to leave a guest hanging out there in the dark. It's just not no fun. So if y'all would help me make welcome Mr. Lenny Leonard. I call him Mr. Athas.
Come on.
How you doing, bud?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
That's outstanding, outstanding. So, Mr. Athens, I hope you don't mind if I call you that. If I get the gumption and the nerve, I'll call you Lenny. But I know you want me to. But it's just so hard. I respect you so much.
Well, thank you very much for that compliment. Just don't call me late for dinner.
When the pinto beans are done, you just start hollering. So, anyways, Mr. Athens, would you mind telling these people all about yourself, what you have accomplished?
Well, I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but I will say this. When I was born, the Dead Sea wasn't even sick. And I'm originally from Maryland. And in 1970, I went to work with the Maryland State Police for about almost 11 years. And then in 1980, I was hired by DEA. And I spent 28 years total with DEA. And then after that, I became an assistant U.S. attorney. And I worked in Baltimore, the Republic of Colombia, South America for a couple of years in the mid 80s, from 86 to 88. And then in 1988, I got transferred to Miami, where I remained until today. I live outside of Fort Lauderdale area. And I had a wonderful career. I was very, very fortunate. And State Police, DEA, and the U.S. Attorney's Office were three wonderful places to work. And now I just have a limited law practice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm married and no children, and we have 2 dogs, and life is good.
You said you had no children. You got 2 dogs.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. I have some stepchildren. I have 3 stepchildren.
Okay. Hey, Captain Cage Free. That's Kevin, I believe. I see you, buddy. Don't you run and hide from me. I'm gonna get you one of these days. He knows I'm after him. He's a he's a card. I think the world of him. Did you ever see that show that I done of a trial to find out if I was perplexing a hoax?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I don't believe I caught that one.
I done a show and had a couple of some of my friends to come on, and I had one as a prosecuting attorney. One was a foreman of the jury. I had one of them's wife as the judge, and she went all out. She went and got the robe and the old English wig, and oh, it was great. And I portrayed myself as the what's the other part? You got the prosecuting and the
Defense
defense.
attorney?
Yeah, the defense attorney.
Plaintiffs and defendants attorney.
Yeah, and I took myself out and come on, and I said, I'm here. I was the one that was accused, and I told her I'd like to represent myself, and we just had a good time. Well, at the end of it, I asked the chat room to basically be the jury, and my other partner was the foreman, and he kept reading and watching. Everybody pronounced me not guilty except one. And that's old Kevin down there, CCF, or Captain Cage Free. So I've been after him ever since,
I don't blame you.
Yeah, he's a good guy. A good guy. All right, let's see. We got that covered about what what you was wanting to say, but we're going to move on to a story. And Waylon, do you want to read it or tell it, or do you want me to?
If you want to read it, I'm finishing up with him, or I can read it. It's left up to you. It don't matter.
I would like for you to read it, if that was okay. Now, if you don't want to, just let me know.
I ain't got my other phone with me right now. I'd have to run back there and get my other phone. I ain't where I can flip it. If you got it where you can flip it up, I ain't been thinking Icebox. I'm sorry, everybody. I've got 3 or 4 things going on here, and my mind is not where it's supposed to be. Can you got good access of it?
Yep, got it right here. Guilty as sin. I'm gonna get him. That's all right. You'll be on that other show, and I'll come in and rip you a new one. All right, here's the story as it goes. I'm retired military, and things went dark.
Yeah, I pushed the button I shouldn't have pushed. I'm back now. Right?
Yeah, you are. All right, I'm a retired military and was a flight engineer on a heavy lift helos for 22 years. You're totally wrong in your assessment of what happened when Mount St. Helens blew. There was a combined effort of the active duty Army out of Fort Lewis, Washington, National Guard, United States Forest Service, and yes, the CIA. The CIA had a specialized team apparently that deals with Sasquatch incidents. Why? Because the female agent spoke fluent Sasquatch. That blew my mind. They had a GP large military tent set up doing first aid on burned and injured Sasquatch. One large male had a team follow him to where a female was injured that needed recovery. Most military bases have federal wildlife officers to manage the hunting that goes on the base. Most of these bases have to deal with troublesome Sasquatch. When I was stationed at Fort Benning, the aircraft I was crewing was tasked to fly a set of coordinates for a recovery mission. When we got there, there was a deceased Sasquatch male, approximately 10 feet tall. We flew it back to the Larson Army Airfield, and the Air Force had a C-130 waiting for us to load this beast onto their ship. This was back in 1977. This was classified, so let me move on to the next one. This was classified back then. That was 47 years ago. Since then, I have found out that these beasts are in almost all of our 49 states except Hawaii. The Native American people and the First Nations people of Canada have their oral traditions that go back hundreds of years about interactions with Sasquatch. The Forest Service and the National Park employees know about them, but it is kept very classified. That's what we got. So, what do y'all think about that?
Well, I'm not at all surprised to hear that. Um, I've heard other reports or shows that have suggested that, but that's coming from somebody who really should know. Why the government is doing this by withholding this information or classifying it whenever they can, I have absolutely no idea. As I told you backstage, my 43 years in law enforcement, 34 years of it with the Department of Justice, I never, ever heard anything at all about this subject. Never heard it mentioned, never heard it commented upon, nothing. But then again, a lot of your classified and confidential information in the federal government is on a need to know basis. And there just isn't a lot of interaction for the most part, 99% of the time, between drug traffickers and these beings. The only exception would maybe be marijuana grows, and I've heard some reports on YouTube of officers who were in the military and had some experiences at marijuana grows with these beings. But we didn't really have that where I worked in Miami. We have marijuana grows indoors. We had a lot of those, but not too much out in the woods. So I don't know. I mean, to me, I don't know what the possible reason could be to be this secretive about these beings. I have a couple of theories, but I don't know. It's
Okay.
doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, then what do you think?
Well, I got situated here. I'm sorry. I think they know a whole lot. I mean, if you're wrong, you're wrong. I've had to eat crow before. I'd rather eat chicken, but I've had to eat crow in the past. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it makes you scratch your head. It really does. It's a fascinating being. Mother Nature at her best is the way I put it, or the Creator at his best when he made these beings. I don't think they're all evil at all. I think there are some bad ones. Sure, they
Mm-hmm.
get ticked off. They get ticked off at the little guy with a gun on his shoulder, like I've always told Icebox. Here comes a little dumb human. He's somewhere he don't supposed to be. Here he comes, he's got his lunchbox in one hand and his 308 in the other hand, but I don't know. I mean, it's, I can see, what the gentleman's talking about may be covered up a little bit. It probably shakes some people up. I don't think it would shake them up that bad because all the sightings we have now. I mean, all of these people cannot be lying. I mean, if we've got this many people lying to us, we've got some severe problems in this world.
Yeah, I was telling Lenny earlier, I think that the government has got a hand in this. And before I move on, let's see, we got Van. Hey, Van, good to see you again, buddy. I'm always glad to see you, Van. And Van, we do need to get in touch really, really soon. I'm curious about if you want to do something with me on Saturday mornings, and I think you know what I'm talking about. So, if you don't mind, get with me on that. Um, Hey, Henry. Oh, man, there's Henry. I always love to see Henry in here. And Miss Joanne Glass, thank you, sweetheart, for coming and seeing us. They know, but I'm not sure if they're scared of them. We're fixing to get into that.
Yeah.
Lenny, because I said something like this to Lenny today, and they know. I'm not sure if they're scared of a mass panic or they know it's more dangerous than people realize. Who knows? I don't trust the government. We was talking about that same subject today, wasn't we, Lenny?
We were, yes, we were,
You
and it's very difficult for me to believe that the government doesn't know about these creatures. Anything important that has this much attention, they're gonna pay attention to it. And some branch of the government or some aspect of the duties of some organization is going to be looking into this. just for national security purposes, for no other reason, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. I'm not telling anything official because I know absolutely nothing from my years in the government official about any of this. One of the things that could happen if these things did come out is you would probably see the outdoor industry go right through the basement. I mean, there wouldn't be surprise. It wouldn't be a surprise to me if millions of people just stopped going in the woods because if they, in fact, were confirmed, it was confirmed that these beings exist and they're out there. And I agree with Waylon. I don't think they're all malevolent, but I think there are some that are, and I think that a lot of these people that go missing in our national parks, and also probably in the state parks too, in certain states that are more wild and uninhabited, fall prey to these beings.
Mm.
I mean, they're definitely an apex predator from everything you can see. And I'll be right up front. I have never had any type of encounter with one. I've never seen one. Now, whether I heard something or not, I don't know. I've been in the woods since I was big enough to pick up a gun. I used to look forward to the opening day of squirrel season when I was a kid in school, like you couldn't believe. And I've deer hunted, deer hunted, rabbit hunted, squirrel hunted, pheasant hunted out in South Dakota for the best part of 15 years, and also back in Maryland I did. In Florida, I hunt wild hogs and deer and turkey. And I was on a hunting lease from 2011 until 2 years ago, and I ran it as the administrator of it for the last 4 years or so. And nobody in camp ever heard anything or saw anything, which is amazing because our lease was almost 9,000 acres in Central Florida, west of Melbourne. And there was a lot of game, a lot of hogs, not very many bears. I never saw a bear the whole time I was there. Why? I don't know. I have no idea why because they were all around us, but we just didn't see it. And the government has to know about these things. There just isn't any way they wouldn't have an interest in it.
I said that I think the government has raised some. And you know where I'm going with this. They've captured some and they've had them born in captivity, raised them up. And I think, I was telling somebody when I first got into this, I said, I don't hear the reports that I used to hear because I used to work for the BFRO way back when. And I done it probably about a year and a half. And there was reports coming in left and right. And now they're not getting near as many as they used to. And I kind of wondered if something was happening to the Bigfoot themselves. Were they dying out? This and that kind of stuff. And I've come to realize that people, once they get ridiculed or almost, well, just like anybody else, they say where they're at. A lot of researchers, a lot of people, a lot of other people show up on their property wanting to find these things and do that kind of stuff. And I kind of get the feeling that people don't want to do reports anymore. They don't trust people. It's kind of like I was telling you earlier, you don't go running to a reporter over something around the house, because then everybody wants to come see.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating subject, and I got involved in it quite accidentally in the whole topic.
Yeah. Hang on a second. I'll tell you what. I think that's Brian trying to get on. So let me do this again. There we go. He might be trying to tell me, hey, he can't make it. I don't know. But Brian, if you're out there, there's the link, man. Just click that and come on. You know how to do it. I'm sorry about that, Lenny. Go ahead.
No, it's quite all right. Quite all right. I mean, it is a fascinating subject as long as you keep your mind open and you don't come into it with some preconceived ideas or notions about these so-called quote unquote cryptids out here. I mean, a couple of things you need to keep in mind is I think it was the silverback gorilla or one of the species of gorilla was only discovered in the 60s, I
Mm-hmm.
believe, or something like that. I'm not completely up to the stats on it. And there now, I just read something here not too long ago. They found some other uh, monkey or ape that they thought was extinct that they've located in a far reach of the earth. So I mean, the Gigantopithecus, the Neanderthals, all that. I mean, we as human beings sometimes have a tendency to be quite conceited that we know it all, and I don't think we know anywhere near what we try to pretend we do. I think the good Lord reserves a lot of that for himself. But as far as these beings go, um, mine. You want to? Should I tell you how I first got involved in this?
Sure.
Well, like I said, I've been hunting my whole life, and I had heard about Bigfoot, but I was very ambivalent about it. I didn't have an opinion one way or the other about it. I didn't think that people who believed were having hallucinations or mistaken. I didn't think that, and I wasn't a zealot with it, or really even that. I wasn't even really interested in it. And then when COVID hit, I had left the government. I left the government in 2014 and opened a little small law practice, sole practitioner, and I used to watch this channel on this Canadian guy who was a guide, and it was a great channel, and he had all kinds of stuff about hunting and crazy stories about grizzly bears and elk and sheep, and it was interesting, and I'd listen to it. Beautiful scenery, some of the pictures, and then he had this other channel. So I saw this other channel, and it was kind of suggested to me that this was another channel he had to give you tips on being, better in the hunting field in the woods. So I watched that, and that's not what it was. It was a channel about his personal experiences with these beings and how it affected him. And then I found out later he had written a book and a few other things. Through him, uh, I kind of got interested in it because, again, this was after COVID. The courthouses were closed. I had nothing to do, and the day COVID hit here in Florida in March of 2020, I had a new knee put in. I used to run a lot when I was young, and I paid for it by bad knees. So I'm recuperating. It was about 6 months, I guess, after COVID when this happened, and courthouses here they were closed for a year. I just didn't have anything to do, so I'm sitting at home and I was bored and was watching the shows, and I got interested in this because it's very much like a mystery that hasn't been solved yet.
Yeah.
And I just kept getting more and more interested in it accidentally. I mean, it just if you have an open mind and you have some intellect and you like the challenge of using your brain instead of just listening to what you're told like a sheep, it's very easy to become involved in this, in my opinion, especially if you like the outdoors that I do.
Mm-hmm.
So through those two channels, or through that channel, I found a guy who I thought was another Canadian. I thought most of this was all going to be in Canada. I didn't really think much about the United States, and he ended up being in Tennessee. Through him, and I at East Tennessee, and I have relatives in East Tennessee. And then he through him, I found this guy in Mississippi, and my lovely wife is from Mississippi, and we have family over there. In fact, I have a relative that lived in the same town he did. His name was Kerry Arnold, and his show was Bigfoot Odyssey. And I got so interested in that. And one of the things for me, this is you're talking about a novice and an enthusiast. I'm really wouldn't call myself anything more than an enthusiast. I interviewed a lot of people 43 years as a federal agent, as a prosecutor, and you interview people, and you're looking to see if they're telling you the truth. Does that mean that you're a walking lie detector? No, it doesn't. But there's certain little telltale signs and give away movements and motions and different things that you can look for. And it's interesting. I mean, I love my job. I just got old. But anyway, so I started watching him, and he talked about his story. And his story was he had been hunting his entire life. He rented a piece of property, and he's out there turkey hunting by himself, and he's the only one supposed to be there. And he sees this bipedal, he thought was a man with a ghillie suit on, turkey hunting, and which would be understandable because you don't wear hunter's orange turkey hunting. You wear camo or dark colors or green or something to blend into your environment. And it wasn't. It was one of these beings, and it was, I forget now, 30 to 50 feet away from him, screaming and shaking a tree, and it was huge, and he was totally paralyzed with fear, and he was a big guy. And I watched him. It was the first time he'd been back to where that sighting was, and there's no way that man was lying. It just absolutely positively he was telling the God's honest truth. That was just what were my thoughts at the time. And I said, man, this is unbelievable. And that just piqued more interest for me. And I went from that to there was an old gentleman of another channel out there that I watched, and he bought some land in southern Missouri near the Ozarks or right around that area. And he had all kinds of stuff on his property with deer with their heads turned around and thrown in a pile. And I listened to him, and I'll tell you what, he was telling the truth. Now, have I seen some people that, well, let's just say that they were maybe a little cavalier with the truth, in my opinion? Yeah, I have some YouTube stuff, but there's just, as Waylon said, there's just too many people coming forward. You can't get 5 people to agree where to go to lunch. How are you going to get millions of people together to come up with this humongous is a better word, conspiracy to create something out of nothing? For what? No one's getting rich off of this. There's not any fame or fortune. In fact, it's just the opposite. And I have really developed a real strong interest in this subject for a lot of reasons, and some of them was like I just told you. I will say this, though, a little bit back to the government. This thing about government agents, the men in black coming in, I have a real issue with that as an attorney. Because in this country, you have something called the Bill of Rights. You have the First Amendment Bill of Rights, which is freedom of speech and freedom to associate and move. And if somebody comes in and tells you, if you do X, I'm going to do Y, or if you don't do X, I'm going to do Y, you're flirting around with something that's commonly known as extortion.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's permissible. And I can tell you, as an assistant U.S. attorney, if it came to me that a federal agent was doing that, first of all, I would never even consider doing that when I was an agent. But if I heard that a federal agent was doing that to people, now as an AUSA, I would have had a real problem with it. I mean, it would have required some more inquiry. Now, I would, if someone came to me and had an issue with this, I would do the best I could to help them. And
yeah, everybody beat my attorney.
well, it's just not right. You don't come and tell somebody, well, I saw something, and you talk about it. We're going to do this X, Y, or Z. Now, if you're a government employee and you have clearances and you're given classified information, that's a horse of a different color.
Mm-hmm.
Been there, done that, and you don't fool with that. I mean, that's different. But you're talking about a private citizen who goes on a camping trip or whatever, and he sees one of these things, and it scares him, or there's some other incident, and then he supposedly, I'm not saying it's happening. I mean, people say it happens, so I got to take them at their face value. There's something that's not going to fly. I don't believe that would fly in a court of law. I really don't. I just don't think there's a judge that's going to say, well, it's okay to threaten a citizen. I just don't.
Mm-hmm. I am going to ask this question because that's the one reason I got you on here is you go to channel to channel to channel learning these things back for 3 years.
Yeah, a little about 3.5 years or so. I go as many channels as I can in different places I can because I want to suck up the knowledge from everywhere to sort of get a theme.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you probably heard it all. but Van, I think it was Van. Let me hang on here. Yeah, Van wants to know your thoughts on the dog man.
Well, I'm still wrapping my head around Bigfoot. So I mean, Dog Man is out there.
Yep.
And if they do exist, and I have no reason to believe these people are doing anything but telling the truth, is it an offshoot of Bigfoot that's maybe has some genes that have created something different? I don't know. But if they are a separate species and they exist and they're doing the things that you hear, forming packs and their abilities, it is exceptionally frightening. I don't have any inside knowledge at all, nothing. But could you theorize that maybe they were created as trying to manufacture some kind of a super soldier? I mean, I don't know. I mean, anything is possible. I mean, we know so little about these cryptids that anything right now is conceivable. And that's why another reason why I just don't think the government is completely absent the knowledge of these things. I think the government knows a whole lot more than they're telling, and I personally don't like that. I don't think the government should be withholding this stuff. It's not all secret. Now, finally, they're revealing that there's UFOs out there. So everybody they called crazy before, what about that? I mean, oh, you saw a UFO, you're out of your mind. Well, now the government says, oh yeah, they're out there.
Well, I'm kind of leaning toward an opinion that you're probably right. Maybe they done some experiments and trying to come up with a super soldier. And when you say that, I think about Helltown. I don't know if you know what Helltown's about.
I do not.
Okay, Helltown. Somebody sent it to me, and one of my buddies on here will back me up on this. There was a town that sprung up somewhere in Ohio, and these guys would. There's some killings got started, and they thought maybe it was the Wendigo or something like that, and they started killing folks, and they started appeasing it by bringing food and stuff like that, to it, and trying to keep the killings down. And they done a report, or I'm gonna say a documentary on it, where they people were still going on, and they sent these military guys in there to eradicate or whatever. And they say that there is an underground facility right there in that town. I mean, is it? But they actually say that there is one there. Okay, outside of the documentary, I did read somewhere that is a real deal, and that it has a commons area, places to eat, and back there in the back they had something that was in a room with a smashed window now, of course, and it was a circular window in it. It looks kind of like you had something in there very dangerous. Let's put it that way. And I'm wondering if the government has something to do with the production of Dog Men. And yeah, man, that's one of my favorite movies, Dog Soldiers. It's a great movie. What are you doing, bud?
Well, I think it's one of the government's little experiments that might have went bad. Maybe I mean, it's like the black bear. I mean, they just spotted another black bear in Carbon Hill, 15 minutes from where I was at. I mean, they've introduced these black bears into these forests around here because there's no way this many black bears have traveled, excuse me, out of Tennessee down here this far into northwest Alabama. I mean, they can. Don't get me wrong. They can walk for a long time, but there's just too many black bear sightings, and these dog men. I know it's off the rail. It sounds crazy,
Yep.
but I mean, what did they cross them with? How did they get them to stand up? Is there a little human DNA in there? Did they experiment with that? I mean, there's a lot of things you can scratch your head about. So I mean, it's left up to the individual, what you want to believe and what you don't want to believe. They're out there. Too many people have seen them. We can't have this many people lying. It just don't make any. That would be as absurd as I guess the Bigfoot and the Dog Man. I mean, I don't know. It just makes me scratch my head a lot.
Well, I'm going to tell you, when you talk about Dog Man, you talk about Bigfoot. When I think of Bigfoot, it's not automatic, just anything like it's not automatically just fear or dread. It's wondering about how they developed, where they came from, how they got there. When I think about a dog man, I don't think anything much more than fear, because I'm sure they're meat eaters, and I don't want anything to do with them.
No.
Well, when started getting real hot and heavy into this, and y'all know, you guys been following me, y'all know what I'm doing and what I'm about. One of the warnings is other cryptids. I love the Bigfoot stuff. I mean, that's, if you don't want to know the truth about it, that's dangerous enough, you know.
Yes, it is.
And then you throw in a dog, man. It's like, I asked somebody, I was going to have him on the show, but we ran into complications. I asked him, I said, "What do you do if you see a Wendigo or something like that?" He says, "There ain't nothing you can do." Well, that's the way I feel about the dog man. If he wants you, he's coming to get you. I don't care what you got. I mean, but I am being warned about it. Let's put it that way. So, and now that I'm like where I'm at now, I've got people wanting me to see one, and I don't think I want that to happen. I'm right happy just trying to deal with Bigfoot. Be honest with you.
Exactly.
There's just too much out here. Something has to break it. Just there has to be some breaking point where this flood of knowledge is released.
Yep.
And now, I mean, you take a single paint stir and you can break it. You take a half a dozen paint stirs, you're not going to break them.
That's right.
The point being is there's strength in numbers. And with YouTube and shows like yours, Icebox, and this community, people can get together. And I mean, and that's the whole thing, the communication amongst the people. You didn't have this 15 years, 20 years ago.
Mm-mm.
YouTube and all this stuff. I didn't get a smartphone until I left the government in 2014. My cousin asked me, I don't know, it must have been now the 80s, sometime in the early 80s, if I would be interested in pitching in. He was going to put some money and buy some stock, and a company was making phones, portable phones. I said, that's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard.
Lord.
I mean, so I think we can do a lot. I think there's a lot can be done with this community, getting together and exchanging knowledge, not withholding it and trying to make it a personal possession. I don't know what the point of that would be.
That's what I tell people. I've said, and just like yourself, well, I've never seen one or something like that. You don't understand. It's the conversation. It's learning stuff. Everybody that I have on here, I learned something from. You know, as they're thinking, well, my story is the same as somebody so. Well, that in itself is helpful. You know, but I want to hear it from you. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Then I get to learn something else and can add on, and everything starts to pile up, you know what I'm saying? And then it gets sorted out. You learn about these creatures and critters, and you kind of know how to go about what you want to do. You know what I mean?
I can't imagine what I would have felt had I run into one of these beings in one of my hunting trips. Heck, I could have heard tree knocks, rock clacks, or vocals. I would have just, oh, it's a sick cow, or it's some animal or what. I mean, I just would have dismissed it.
Oh yeah. Uh, Back in my days, I didn't know when I saw this, and I told you today, everything that I've been through and seen is the sighting that nails everything for me. There, to me, there's no doubt there are Bigfoot. I ain't seen a dog man.
One of the themes that I've heard on the different sites that I've visited and listened to is that people in the woods, you have a sixth sense and you need to listen to it. And I absolutely 100% believe in that sixth sense. It actually
Oh yeah.
aided me greatly on occasion when I was on the job as a policeman and as a federal agent. I mean, greatly. without going into any details. But one detail I will go into is I was hunting and I had this one spot. It was in the woods from 2012 or 13. I think I ended up getting it permanently. And I'm talking about up to sometime before COVID. One morning, I mean, I used to hunt there all the time for deer hunting. You walk in the woods, it wasn't that far, but walked in the woods, climbed up in my stand, and sat there and waited till it got late. One morning, I don't know what came over me. I got out of the trucks by myself, and I wanted to walk in that woods, and something wouldn't let me do it. I just in my inside me, and I'm going, "What the hell is wrong with you?" And I could not force myself to go in the woods and have absolutely no idea why. So I stayed out on the road near my truck, and it bothered me for a long time. After, what happened? I mean, you go in there all the time, and to this day, I don't know why, unless that was sixth sense just kicked in. I have absolutely no idea why.
I'm sitting here reading some of the comments while you was telling that story. And by the way, all that is I don't care what anybody said. Like you said, the sixth sense. You better pay attention to that. You better pay attention because when mine kicked in, the hair raising and all that, I should have listened then. But anyways. But back in the 80s and 90s, mutilated cattle, UFO sightings. I remember all that. I do. And I'm kind of wondering if that's when the government really kicked in and started putting these critters out there and that's what I was trying to get to earlier. I think they have more multiplied in these states, just like the bears, they introduced them and now they're starting to reproduce. I think Bigfoot's got a big head start and, that's what's going on as far as the sightings. They're going to different places and stuff like that. But I think the government does have a hand in this.
Well, I've likened this to coyotes. I never saw a coyote growing up hunting. It's only been the last, I don't know how many years that they've been around everywhere. I mean, didn't they find one in Central Park in New York City, for crying out loud?
Yep.
And I mean, they're just overpopulated and outgrowing their area, and they moved east. But we never had the coyotes; they were never an issue. First one I ever saw was in the early '90s in Arizona, crossing the road. I had never seen one before, and now they're everywhere. We have them all over the place here. We live in a suburban area, and I had my dogs out last winter. And about 3 o'clock in the morning, got me up to go to the bathroom outside. I just walked out front, and there a coyote walked by right across the street from my house. And this is all houses around here. Well, there's a little bit of woods, but not much. So I mean, they're everywhere. And same thing probably with these beans. Um, they've outgrown their area, and they're not being taken, so they just keep multiplying and supply and demand.
Yeah, I know we all kind of subscribe to that we're encroaching on their areas. Yeah, maybe so, but I think they're just getting more and more, and it's not getting hard to encroach on their area. Waylon, what you got over there, bud? I know you're thinking.
These black bears, I mean, if you would have told somebody 30, 35, 40 years ago when I was a kid, I saw a black bear, well, they'd have laughed at you like you would have told them if you had seen Bigfoot around this part of the country. And now it's every day somebody's putting a picture up, a black bear walking through their backyard right in the middle of town, down in Foley, where my cousin lives, 15 minutes from the beach. I mean, a lady had 3 of them walking through her backyard down at the beach. I mean, up here in these little towns where we live, they got woods they can go to pretty quickly. I mean, they got coverage pretty quickly if they want to get away from us. But down in that area, I mean, it's just one house after the other one. I mean, they've had to introduce them, or we've encroached on their areas, and like Icebox said, they're reproducing more than what we think, and maybe that could be it. I don't know.
Okay. Lenny, if you don't mind, it's that time for me, and Waylon knows what I'm talking about. Would you tell the story? Because this is what I've been trying to drive at a little bit tonight. You got a man that's respectable as you are. He's basically taking a little chance at some ridicule if somebody watches this that maybe he, oh, ha, ha, ha. Brian, hang on. He shows up. But what I'm trying to get at is that you got a gentleman that's respectable, don't even have anything to do with Bigfoot. In the last 3 years, he got he got bit. He got bit. You know what I'm talking about. He started searching and researching. I mean, you ain't gonna find a more, how can I put it, intelligent and one that would not believe in Bigfoot than Lenny. Let's put it that way. But yet here he is, captivated. I want you to tell the story of the one that made you a believer, that you knew for sure that there was something going on. And I'm gonna bring Brian on because you guys know what I'm fixing to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring Brian on to be with you. But I want you to tell your story. Then as soon as I get back,
You're talking about that fella that had the farm, right?
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hey, Brian, I'll be right back. But go ahead and sit here and enjoy the show with him. Okay.
Oh, hello, Brian.
How we doing?
Good to meet you finally.
Lots of chat, but no visual.
Oh, okay. You can't see?
Oh no, I can see.
Oh, now.
Just
Yeah. Oh, you mean
history.
before? Yeah. Well, I was telling Icebox that when I was trying to develop my collection of evidence or collection of information to decide my position on this stuff, but I found it completely fascinating, interesting. And Kerry Arnold and Bigfoot Odyssey was probably one of the ones that really got me started. What really brought it home to me was this guy, Sasquatch Theory was his name, and he interviewed this guy named Dave, old country boy, old country man, excuse me. He wasn't young, mature country man in southern Missouri near the Ozark Mountains, or in the Ozark Mountain area. I'm not real familiar with Missouri. But anyhow, he's telling his story, and I'm listening to it. And I'm kind of like doing it with my work hat on a little bit just to see what I think. And he said, look, we bought this land, and my cousins and family used to use it, cross it to hunt, and they hunted on it and all that. And it came up for sale, and we bought it. And we weren't even living up here. He said, and I kept coming up here to my property and coming in and finding piles of deer with their necks broke, their necks spun around in piles, 4 or 5 of them at a time. And I'm watching this guy's body language, and there's just no way he's telling the truth. And he was so honest. He said, look, I haven't seen anything, but I've heard them, and I've seen what they're doing. And he got so concerned with this, he called the game wardens, and they said, oh, it's just a bear. You know, it's always a bear, right?
Yeah.
He said, there's no bear turning their heads around and cracking. Well, then he think, well, okay, well, my cousins are doing it. So he got mad at them, took their key away, locked them out, and then they all got mad at him, and they talked about, they were going to do this X, Y, and Z to him because he wouldn't let them hunt there anymore. They got all mad with him. But he said, I'm not having people coming on my land and destroying these animals for no reason. And then he just kept finding them. He found a hog with his head turned around. Now, I hunt hogs. You're not turning a human is not turning a hog's head around. They are extremely, extremely powerful and strong, and all their muscles are in their neck from all the rooting they do. And this just kept going on, and he found branches, so he started putting cameras around, and the cameras were getting ripped off the trees and all kinds of stuff. So he said, finally, a guy from the feds, I think it was the Department of Agriculture, if I remember correctly, came and says, oh, what you have here is something that doesn't exist. And he was hearing all these strange vocals and audio at night. He didn't know what it was. Had absolutely no idea what it was. Well, anyhow, I mean, one thing led to another, and it was really bothering him, and it kept happening, and then it would stop, and then and so he ended up hooking up with Miguel and Sasquatch Theory, and he told his story, and I was just sitting there with my mouth hanging open, listening to this fella, because I with all my heart, I know he's telling the truth, and he's not making up anything at all. Didn't try to say, oh, I've seen him. No, nothing like that. And I think he continues to have them. And I said, you know what? I said, enough of this. I mean, these people aren't lying.
No.
And the evidence is, I mean, the footprints. I mean, people say, oh, they created the footprint. I'm just not buying that. I'm just not. And anyone with an open mind wouldn't be believing that this is some huge conspiracy to defraud the entire world. It's just not possible. And I love the subject. I may start like moving maybe beyond just watching it from my TV, but I'm not as young as I used to be. I used to be able to get around pretty good, but I'm getting up there a little bit.
Yeah.
Your experiences are absolutely frightening, Brian.
Yep, and that's the reason I jumped back in here as quick as I could. Brian, would you do us a favor?
What's that?
I want you to think of a story of an encounter that you've had, and I want you to tell it. And I want Mr. Athas to question you.
Okay.
Will that work?
Yeah.
You up for it, Lenny?
Yes, sir.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah. To me, the scariest one was this year. I believe it was April. I'd have to look at the date on the pictures, when a friend and I had heard about a fishing boat that had been out a couple nights before, and they were night fishing, and they heard what sounded like a fish jump, splash in the water. And then they didn't think anything of it. They were in this island on the Manistee River. And then all of a sudden the fish jumped a little closer to the boat. So, kind of perked their interest. And the next thing you know, a rock ended up in the boat with a big
Ooh.
stream. So we heard about that within a couple of days. So we went out to check things out, because a little backstory on that area was my mom owned a bar back in the day. And there was a gentleman in there who was pretty lit up, and as usual for that customer, he talked about the fact that he had chickens and pigs and cows, and one night he heard the pig start squealing, so he goes out and there's a Bigfoot running off with a pig under each arm. Not a full-grown hog, but piglet.
Mhm.
And he's drunk. He starts screaming at the Bigfoot and had a gun with birdshot, takes 2 shots at it and says, "Drop the pigs. You can have my wife, but drop the pigs." And I said, "Well, what happened?" He said he kept the pigs and the wife's still there. So
Okay.
so I knew there was supposed to be some history there. So we go out that day, and I don't like doing howls because, I've had bad experiences doing call blasts and things like that. And the first thing my friend does when he gets out of the car is rip a really good, unfortunately, a really good Ohio howl. And I was not happy about it. And we got a response. We got a kind of a whoop right away. And he's like, "Well, this is going to be interesting." So we start walking, and within just a few feet of the parking lot, we're finding signs with tree structures and X's with trees that I can't even put my arms around. And at one point, we hear a knock, and so my friend I have one of those Bigfoot knockers with the Bigfoot on the handle and everything. And so he grabbed that. He did a knock, and then he got 2 back. So it was bang, bang. And then all of a sudden, so he did 2 back, and then we got 3 back, and all of a sudden it became like rhythmic. And I thought, okay, that's a woodpecker, and
Was this day or night, Brian?
daytime. So 1, 2 in the afternoon. And forgot part of it. We had walked up on top of a hill, and down inside you could see to me, it looked like a little corral or something, because there were a bunch of huge trees, but they were laid out and stacked like a log, like you would stack a log cabin high. And it was made into a triangle. The ends were interlaced, except for one end was open. And the canopy of pines and stuff above that. So you really had to look to see it. And that was where the knocking was coming from. And all of a sudden it got really rapid. And then my friend's like, "Oh, F." I'm like, "What do you mean, OF?" And he's like, there's babies down there. I just saw 2 babies. And I'm like, okay. And then we hear one knock, we hear a whoop, and then you can hear something coming from one direction, but the knock and the whoop were from 2 different directions. And he's like, we need to go because we're screwed. You know, we're going to wind up as Val's statistics if we don't get.
Yeah.
And I'm like, thanks a lot. I told you not to do the howl, you know. And as we start moving, we can hear within 10 steps. Our first glimpse was about 100 yards, and you could see something moving in the tree line. And within about 10 steps, they were within 40 yards, and we took some pictures. And there were 2 big bruisers, a brown one and a black one, that were pretty close together. And then off to the right was a smaller brown one moving through the tree line.
And you actually could see them.
Yeah, we got a couple good pictures of them. I think I put them up last time. I sent the icebox, one peeking around the tree. They weren't too shy. They were letting us know they were there.
I remember.
Because I think with that Ohio howl and then the potential babies, I think we walked into someplace where we shouldn't have been. Because as we walked, there were X's on both sides of the path. So, and big X's.
Okay.
And so we keep moving, but you can hear them, you know, right behind us getting closer. He turns around a couple of times, take pictures. I took some blind pictures. I saw 3 for sure. He said there were 5 because he saw 2 crawling on the ground, but I didn't see those. So we keep moving and we get back to the car. And first thing my friend wants to do is call, you know, Val and tell him about everything that was going on. So he's on the phone, and within 5 minutes of talking to Val, they start up again in the tree line. Like they hadn't left yet. They were going to make sure we were going to leave. There were, you know, sticks being broke. You could hear some heavy footsteps. This goes on until he hangs up because Val's like, what's going on there? And he's like, oh, the Bigfoot are doing this. And Val's like, shouldn't we leave? I'm like, yes, we should leave.
Could Val hear the audio over the phone call?
He could hear something going on. That was why I don't know if he heard steps or if he heard there were some whistles. Whistles always make me nervous, you know, because those are the ones you see on TV where they sound like a train whistle and then, you know, bad things happen. So there were a couple of those. And then as we were leaving on the way in, we were looking for, you know, signs, you know, tree structures, whatever, breaks, but didn't find anything on the way in. When we were driving on the way out, I look, and there's probably a 4 to 5 foot log that was put in the trees, probably 9 or 10 feet up, that I took a picture of. And it was just hanging there straight, right out in the open. There's no way we could have missed it. And so I messaged Old Bear and talked to him about it. And he said, well, that's a warning. You know, this is how big we are. We know how big you are. And if you come back, you're going to be next to the tree.
Wow. Now, you said a parking lot. Was this a park?
A bunch of people do fishing on Manistee River down there.
Oh, okay. But it's not like a place where people
parking lot where maybe 3 or 4 cars can park.
Who owns that land?
State. So it's a dam on the Manistee River.
Do you know whether or not it's a wild, what we call down here, a wildlife management area where they allow permitted hunting in season?
I do believe they allow hunting.
Reason I'm saying, I'm wondering if what hunters encounter in there that hasn't been reported.
Yeah, and the fishermen. I mean, I would love to know, be able to talk to more people down there.
Do you feel like it was a nursery and you really got yourself into a dangerous situation then, huh?
Yeah, I thought we screwed up. I thought that Ohio howl really tripped us up. Because now we're going in with, you know, challenging right off the bat, and then find that there's babies down there. That was a tipping point, and probably the most nervous I've been, and I've been escorted out before, and it wasn't as nervous as that day.
Can you imagine what would happen to someone who didn't know anything about any of this, didn't know any of the warning signs, wasn't really paying attention to his surroundings in the woods?
Oh yeah, I mean, just like you said,
A missing 411.
the bear did it. You know,
Mhm.
Dave Politis.
yeah,
I mean,
there was no doubt in my mind something bad was going to happen, because I mean they didn't leave. It wasn't like they just escorted us out and then left once we got to the parking lot. They hung around to make sure we were gone, and even went through the trouble of sticking a log in the tree to remind us not to go back.
how far was the nursery area from the parking lot?
150, 200 yards.
That's not very far.
No, no, but it was down a pretty steep ravine down right next to the river. And where the river goes, it kind of goes into a hill, so the river goes under the hill. So it's kind of like a dead end for most people, and then the river goes underneath it.
Well, if you're in the parking lot, is you go in a different direction to fish, or do you have to actually go into the woods to get to the fishing area?
You can go either direction. So there's another 2-track that goes off to the left. I don't know how far down that goes. I didn't go down it. But and then where we parked, it's more like a trail to get down to the dam.
Oh, all right. So probably other people would take that same trail to go to
Oh
the
yeah.
dam,
Yep.
past the nursery area.
Yep.
Wow. Man. How could you estimate how big the creatures are you saw?
The two were pretty close, and we were guessing about 8 feet. And the one was a little more slender. The one I picked, he had to be 800 pounds if he was an ounce.
800 pounds.
Yeah, he's massive. He was twice as big as I am easily. And right now I'm pushing 260. And he was way bigger than me. 2 feet taller, 50% bigger through the shoulders. And then the other one was a little more slender. The black one was a little slender. The brown one was the beast of the burden.
If I was there, I'd be singing one of my favorite songs. Feet don't fail me now.
Yeah, if I'd have been thinking straight, I'd probably been, Jesus loves me or something, because
I mean, all the running around in the woods I did, only by the grace of God and luck, I didn't run into one of these things. I mean,
well, it blows my mind how something that big that weighs that much can sneak around the way they do. So maybe you didn't, you just didn't even know it, didn't know what to look for at the time.
I had no idea. I was earlier before you came on. I could have heard audios and I just wrote it off to a sick cow or something.
Yeah. Or wow,
we had a huge lease. Our hunting lease that I just got off 2 years ago, but I've known since 2011, was almost 9,000 acres, and there's a lot of waterways there, not too far from the St. Johns River, and it very, very thick. I mean, Florida outdoors is pretty thick, especially South Florida.
Okay, Brian. Well, I'm gonna ask a few questions.
Okay.
What were the big ones doing in all this time that the little ones was running around?
Watching us.
Waiting to kill you.
Watching us out in the Rockies. He took a video at one point where you can see the black one is weaving and almost keeping pace with the wind, because you can see a tree move.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden the wind shifts and the tree moves and he keeps moving that way, and you can see him blink.
Okay. Did they move outside of where they were at and start flanking you or anything like that?
No.
Nope. Stayed right there.
Got, mostly the tree breaks and footsteps was the big thing. But they weren't trying to hide too well.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, the one's got his armor on the tree and peeking out like this at us. So,
Mm-hmm. You think were they in between you and the young ones?
oh yeah, because we started back right away before they got real close. The first one was first time we saw them was about 100 yards. We started walking back right away, and they had closed that gap to within 40 in just a few steps.
Now you said something about they had a log hung up in a tree. Was it vertical?
No, horizontal.
Okay, horizontal, and it was pretty good size log. You said.
Yeah, had nothing above it.
All right. Was it behind you on your trail coming back out, or was it somewhere out to the side?
It was on the road to the left. So
to the
on
left.
our right over there. Yep.
Okay, so there was more back there behind you.
Yeah.
Am I saying that right?
Yep.
Okay. Phew. I'd love to have something like that on video.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Waylon.
What are they doing? They're sitting there. I mean, we've got a fellow friend of ours that everybody probably knows him, and I'm not going to call his name. I mean, he was doing a video out in California, and he had done came off the mountain, and he had turned around. He was swimming back up the creek. He was waiting on his two partners to come down, and you can watch his video on his channel, and he shows you right there where the thing is at. And he looked down that creek, and here they came. So he filmed them, and when he got back home, he was looking at his film. This is how elusive these things are. Looking at his film, and probably, how far do you think that Bigfoot was from him, Icebox? What do you think? Do you see the video? How far do you think he was? About 50 yards from him?
Mm-hmm.
On his right side, sitting down, and the man walked right by him and didn't even see it. That
Yep.
thing could have. What would a gun would be no good to you? That's how. I mean, everybody says have your gun and and load heavy. You walk right by that thing and you can't, you didn't see it, and it's sitting there, and he's got you anytime he wants you. That weapon's no good. It's good to you, but I think they're really no good to you. You might as well just throw them down and say, "Here I am."
He's picking at me. He's picking at me, guys.
No, he's not. I mean, no, I load heavy myself. Icebox knows that, but I mean, that's amazing. I mean, the man has dealt with this subject all his life, and he walks right by it, and it's
Mhm.
sitting there, and he didn't see it till he got back home and looked at his film, and he showed the film, and there the thing was sitting there moving around. That's scary to me, man. That's scary.
Well,
I
that's
done
like when I took those pictures before I walked in with that I showed with the footsteps a couple of weeks ago. I snapped a picture before we walked up there, and when you look at that picture, Val had sent that to Bob Daigle and for Bob Daigle to take a look at, and I thought I was going to get shredded. There was nothing there, blah blah blah. And I got the messages from Bob, hey, you got two on your left and one on the right. So we walked right in between them. And the one on the left, leaving a 23-inch track, has to be pushing 11, 12 feet.
Wow. Yeah.
Can you imagine? I went to the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Festival, and they had some guy in a costume about 8 foot and real wide. And I was telling my relative that was with me, I said, can you imagine running into something like that in the woods?
Yeah, it changes your life. I'll tell you what. Even just a small 7-footer will. They're not supposed to be here. But
I haven't been hunting the last couple of years when my interest has really gotten so heavy with this. And I get back in the woods again. It's going to be an entirely different set of ideas that I'm going to be dealing with. I mean, things that I never even thought about before. I mean, the biggest threat to me was, not stepping on a venomous snake. And now, I don't know.
yeah, if anything, I've always had respect for the woods. But even now, there's even more so respect for what's out there. When I saw the first one when I was 16, that's what kept me humble my entire life. Was because
that one story you told about you and a lady friend of yours in the snow, that was frightening.
Yeah, that was the one I was just talking about, where we walked right in between three of them. I mean, we were well within their arm's reach. So if they really wanted, to get us, they could have got us on the way in, been no issue.
Yeah, it's and the public needs to know more about them from what our government knows. I mean, in my opinion, can't force them to do it, but it's not right.
Yeah,
The government's primary objective is to care for its citizens' safety and well-being.
Yeah, people need to be aware of what's out there. I mean, I guess I'm not surprised when they denied bears in Benton County for decades, even though we had pictures of them coming out of the barn. Same thing with cougars. My mom had a picture of a cougar that was running around Platte River, and they're not supposed to be anywhere near here. And they accused her of, photoshopping the photo and all kinds of stuff. And then 2 years later, they actually have a sign posted up on, it's called Sleeping Bear Dunes. It's a national park, open to the public for climbing the dunes and going out onto Lake Michigan. There's a sign about staying in pairs because of cougar sightings. And
We have
here in
I
2 years.
don't live very far from the Everglades. And on the other side, I'm on the east side of it. On the west side of it, they have a panther called Florida panther. It's a mountain lion, a cougar, whatever you want to call it. They have a preserve there, and cats are all over the place. But the state of Florida doesn't believe that, or says that they don't. There's a certain point of river, and there's not any north of that. But yet all these people are coming up with trail camera photos of them.
Yeah.
All right, I got a question for you guys. At the chat room, Waylon, everybody. What if the government does come out and say, yes, they are Bigfoots and there's different species and whatever they want to put out there, but they actually put it out that they are real, they've been studied, this and that. What do you think how the public is going to react? The general public. How do you think they will feel about that?
Depends how they put it out there. What information they're putting out. If they put out their, big hairy monsters that want to get us all, then a whole bunch of panic and a whole bunch of trying to not to be too harsh. Certain individuals going out trying to take one down for a trophy, and I hate to see somebody get all liquored up out looking for a trophy, and then how many people are going to get hurt in the process of that.
I think there'd be a whole litany of events that would occur. I think you would have a certain segment of tree huggers who would want to stop all logging, stop people, and embrace them and go for that. I mean, there's always extremes in every direction. And I think, like Brian said, you'd have other people who want to go out and hunt them down like it's an animal. I don't think that would end well for them by doing that. But I also think it would have an unbelievable impact on the logging industry, on the outdoors industry generally, hunting, fishing, camping, all of it. There's a certain happiness because what's the old saying? Ignorance is bliss. I mean, if you don't know about them, I never knew about them, and I was really happy in the woods. I mean, but knowing that they're there, the government having confirmed it, I think it would have a lot of good and bad results. It wouldn't be one way or the other, in my humble opinion.
Waylon?
I go back to the Mount St. Helens incident with the CIA knowing their language. That was 1977. I remember 1977. I think all of us remember it real well. Us older guys do. And it's been a long time ago. And you had people back then, or somebody before her had to know their language. So that tells me if that's a really a true story, probably they've had these things in captivity somewhere in one of their bases, underground bases somewhere, wherever they got them at, and they do. And they've raised these things, and they know their language, or somebody, the Indian, or I go back to the Indian, or maybe it could have been us little old regular humans, I guess. I don't know. Somebody, she had to learn that language from somebody somewhere. And I don't know. Icebox asked me that question. He said, "What would it do to me?" I wouldn't really care. I mean, I know it would probably hurt some things financially, maybe like the logging industry, and it could knock the bottom out of the hunting world. Selling hunting gear, gun. I don't think it ever stopped people from buying weapons. I think they load heavier. Once again, I think they go buy bigger weapons. I think they know how to take them down. I think they know how to tranquilize them. I think they know what to do with them. I think they know where to take them. Because if they know their language, somebody had to teach them. Somebody before that lady knew that language. And how did they know their language if they hadn't had them in captivity somewhere? and they're talking back and forth to one another. Unless there's a race somewhere, the Indians or the white folks or whoever, somebody knew their language and taught that lady that language. And, that tells me they've been messing with them a long, long time.
Hmm. Now here's a statement that says it all. It's over for Bigfoot. I can only imagine how many uh, drinking young men sit around and start getting halfway lit up and all this, and they're like, "Hey, they say Bigfoot's real. Let's go out here in these woods." Two things is going to happen: either they're going to find them and they're going to kill one or two or whatever, or they're going to get hurt themselves. And don't forget your state parks. What's it going to do to them? You know, everybody. I'm going to say rumors, theories, whatever you want to call it, that state parks is basically a sanctuary for Bigfoot and quote dogman, that kind of stuff. Because I've heard of stories of dogman being up here at Potato Creek State Park, and that's not too far. It's just kind of south of South Bend, and that kind of deal. You see where I'm going with this? State parks, are they going to shut down? Are they going to turn them into sanctuaries? How many people? And I'm gonna just put it because, guys, I'm from the South. How many rednecks are you gonna get out there in these woods trying to kill one, make a rug out of it? Or are they gonna declare it as uh, protective species? What are they going to do if they actually did?
Yeah, I mean, I live in the heart of dogman country, so up here in Michigan, and you close Manistee National Forest. There's still areas of that closed for aggressive wildlife.
Don't they do that, the LBL, all the time? Close different sections of it?
I don't know about LBL. The one up here in Manistee National Forest has been closed a couple of years now, and from third-hand information, it's quite a few campers were getting harassed and even got some damage done by a few of the dogmen back there. So they put up huge gates across roads that were normal access, and that's their official statement is aggressive wildlife. They're not saying because of bears or cats, just aggressive wildlife in general.
Mm-hmm. Well, all right, guys, we're going to try to bring this up to a close. We've been on about an hour, 20 minutes. I told you, Lenny.
Well,
Oh man, I thought it was at 8:30.
Huh?
I thought it was at 8:30.
How do you get 7:30 and 8:30 mixed up?
Oh no.
Oh, I was going off last week. No wonder I'm. Oops.
Oops. Well, that's why I called you, brother.
You know what? I never checked my voicemail.
No, you done fine. You come in at the right time, buddy. I mean, you did. I wanted you to tell a story because I wanted to hear Mr. Athas. What kind of questions him being a lawyer. Because he's done. Ain't no telling how many interviews of criminals or innocent people. The whole spectrum. I was just kind of curious how his mind would work when he heard a story and tried to find out about things. And I thought that was very interesting myself. So, anyways. You done great. You're right on time. So I'm going to go ahead and get us out of here. Waylon, do you have anything else you want to say? And yes, that makes me very curious about that language deal. If that's a true story and they know that language, how long have they known that language? So go ahead, Waylon.
Exactly. That's what. Exactly. But I'll say this about the Black Panther. Where we lived at, we bordered a couple of miles from the Bankhead National Forest. I could spit and spit in the forest. I mean, I remember the old people. I've heard them talk about the black. Oh, there's no such thing as a Black Panther. I've heard them talk about it when I was a kid in several different occasions, and they outran them. I had a great great grandmother. She was a midwife, and that's what she went around doing. Didn't have a car. She had. They always kept her with the biggest, strongest, fastest horse they could keep her with. Is when my mother told that story, and she said she outran one night on her horse. And I've had people just walk in my face and tell me there's no such thing as a Black Panther. Yes, there are. There's a lot of them around. They avoid you just about as much as we avoid them, really and truly. I mean, that's the way I look at it. But it's been a great show, and there's a lot of things out there in the woods. You got to keep your eyes open and keep your head on a swivel. And it's hard to do when you can walk right by them and you don't even know they're there. I don't know. I'm not going out hunting any of them. I've had a lot of interactions with them, but I've never seen one. And the last interaction I had, it was bad, was a couple of months ago. They were hooting and hollering and popping off, and it was after it rained and it cooled down one night after midnight. And man, the whole area in this place went completely silent. And they was hooting and talking to one another. And in about 5 minutes, when I came back in, I laid down and went to bed. Oh, I felt like my head was going to come off my shoulders, man. I felt like my blood pressure was to 500 over 400. I mean, they
I remember
zapped me,
that.
they zapped me or done something to me, man. I come close. It takes a lot to make me throw up, but I came close to throwing up. That's how sick they made me. And within just a few minutes, and that's how close I was to them. And if you think it won't, it will. But anyway, I appreciate everybody coming on the show tonight. I've had some problems here. I've had a little dog sick, and my aunt had to have some scans done. But I made it in here tonight. I appreciate all of you coming. We'll be back on Tuesday night. When we gonna start? Icebox 7 or 7:30?
We're gonna start at 7:30, Brian. Uh, but now I don't know if we're gonna do a Tuesday night show because I am going up to Salt Fork, and if I can, I may get some stories and stuff like that. May come on and tell you guys what happened, and may get a few of those that's up there to come on and tell what happened or if anything happened. I know it's going to be a good time. I mean, they're going to have a good dinner that Saturday night, and there's some other things that's going to go on, so it's going to be fun either way. And I'm going to have it recorded. So, but anyways, yeah, we might come on Tuesday, but if not, it'll be definitely the next Tuesday. We'll start the Tuesday show. But there's a good possibility I may come on next Tuesday, be 7:30. Brian, you got anything else, brother?
No, you guys be safe and have a good time this weekend.
Yeah, I hope so. All right. Now, and we'll get to Mr. Lenny here. And I appreciate him coming on. This has been fun. This is why I wanted him on the show. But me and some guys is going to check out some areas up here. And if it's viable, if there's Bigfoot up here, there's an invitation out to Lenny that we're going to get him up here and take him out for a night or two, whatever one he wants, and let's see if he can get some we can get some interaction or encounters, a safe kind. Let's put it that way, hopefully. And Lenny said, "Man, that's a long way to drive." I told him, I said, "Well, they make airplanes."
Well, I don't know if I can bring my M79 grenade launcher on an airplane.
All right, Lenny, you got
Thank you
anything
very
else?
much. It's been an honor and a privilege being on your show, especially somebody I don't bring a whole lot to it except my interest, a keen interest, and love for the subject.
You done great, and Brian, I do appreciate you coming on, man. I was hoping you would, and you come on the right time. Lenny, this is what it was about. I wanted people to meet you, talk to you, and enjoy you like a lot of us have. We see him in the chat rooms all the time, guys. So whenever you see him, tell him hello and tell him appreciate you coming on my show. I think this is the first one you've been on, isn't it? Of
Yes,
a Bigfoot show.
It is. Yes,
So it's my honor to have you on, and I appreciate it. Guys, we're going to get out of here. We try to be on next Tuesday, and if we can't, we'll be on the Tuesday after that. But I should have some things round up and hopefully have some good video for you guys to have fun. So anyways, y'all come back and be with us next Tuesday, 7:30. If I'm not on, it'll be the one after that. You guys have a good weekend and enjoy yourselves, and y'all be careful, be safe out there in the woods. Y'all have a good night.